Hello, welcome to News Center. I'm Parikshit Luthra. India-Canada ties have hit an all-time low. That's right. Canada has said that the Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Kumar Verma and 5 other diplomats were involved in the killing of Khalistani activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. India has called the charge preposterous and said this is completely ludicrous as well. The Canadian police claims to have uncovered clear and compelling evidence that Indian agents threatened the safety of Canadian nationals. India's External Affairs Ministry has said this is all being done to serve the political agenda and vote bank politics of the Trudeau government. And this is not the first time that they have appeased the Khalistani elements in the Canadian population. India launched a strong protest by withdrawing its High Commissioner and 5 other diplomats. The MEA also announced that 6 top Canadian diplomats have been asked to leave by Saturday. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police has said that it has shared evidence of the involvement of Indian government agents in serious criminal activity and that significant amount of information about the breadth and depth of criminal activity orchestrated by Indian government agents was recently given to Indian officials in a meeting. They have said that the Indian diplomats clandestinely collected information to target South Asian communities in Canada, including members of the Sikh population. They even allege that Indian government used the help of organized gangs, including the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, to carry out violent crimes on Canadian soil. Indian government sources have said that Canada has been making vague accusations without providing evidence to date, and that it is shocking that Canada is now targeting the Indian High Commissioner, who has been intensively engaging with the Canadian government for the last 1 year. When asked if Canada will consider sanctions against the Indian government, the Canadian Foreign Minister said all options are on table. This was Melanie Joly. Now, at the same time, the Export Promotion Minister of Canada, Mary Ng, has said that the Government of Canada will work closely with all Canadian businesses to ensure important economic connections with India remain strong. India and Canada have extensive ties. Indian diaspora accounts for 3% of Canada's population, with over 2.8 million people of Indian origin residing there. Indians are the highest number of foreign students in Canada at 427,000. Canadian pension funds have invested $54 billion in India. Bilateral trade in 2023 was close to $10 billion and in 2024 it's already $3.1 billion so far. More than 600 Canadian companies have businesses in India and 1,000 are actively pursuing business in India. So you can imagine the strong economic ties between the two nations, and if Canada were to impose visa restrictions or any kind of economic sanctions, then it would negatively impact the partnership, something that the Canadian government is also aware of. Now, speaking at a press conference, Trudeau said there is compelling evidence with the Canadian police alleging a broader effort by the Indian government to target dissidents in Canada.
As the RCMP Commissioner stated earlier, they have clear and compelling evidence that agents of the Government of India have engaged in and continue to engage in activities that pose a significant threat to public safety. This includes clandestine information gathering techniques, coercive behavior targeting South Asian Canadians, and involvement in over a dozen threatening and violent acts, including murder. This is unacceptable.
And the big question that we are asking, the diplomatic fallout between India and Canada, will it have a bearing on the investment ecosystem as well? I caught up with former Indian Foreign Secretary and G20 Chief Coordinator Harshvardhan Shringla. I started him by asking him about his assessment on the frosty ties between India and Canada right now.
Well, what we are seeing today really is, a sort of low point in what has been going on for quite some time. And I would say that almost from the time that Prime Minister Trudeau took office, he has sacrificed the larger India-Canada relationship at the altar of narrow domestic political gains. So there is the small constituency, of people who are anti-national and pro-separatism from India. He has somehow, I think, felt that the political support that he gets from a certain party or parties have very strong interests in that direction. And he has always pandered to those interests. And as a result, not only sacrifice and compromise the relationship, but also, in my view, compromise the security and safety of Canadian nationals themselves, because many of these individuals that have been involved in this entire situation have close links with terrorism, with organized crime like drug smuggling, arms running, drug trafficking, etc. I mean, human trafficking, etc. And as a result, I think, clearly the level of cooperation that we should have got and we didn't get, it will be detrimental both for the relationship and for Canada itself. So this is really a low point, as you mentioned, and I think we have to deal with it as it goes.
So what happens next? India expelled 6 Canadian diplomats. Canada responded with reciprocity in a tit-for-tat manner. What action can we now expect, at least through the Canadian judicial process?
Well, I mean, there is a commission of inquiry that they've been talking about, which is going to sit. And in fact, in our view, some of the shenanigans that we saw, including naming our High Commissioner and some senior diplomats as persons of interest in the investigation, is linked to this commission of inquiry that will be sitting shortly. And then, of course, we will have to see, because they've got the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and some of the local law and order authorities also involved in this. My own, from what we can see, our side has been saying, look, if you think that there is some involvement, then give us evidence. Let us know where the involvement is, and of course, let us try and work on this together. But we haven't obviously received much evidence. As the Ministry of External Affairs says, there's not a shred of evidence.
Ambassador Shringla, I'd also like to ask you about the possibility of an impact on economic ties. The Canadian minister, the foreign minister, was asked if Canada would consider imposing sanctions on India, to which she replied that all options are on table. What does this mean according to you, and what will be the implications if Canada goes ahead and imposes sanctions on India?
I think sanctions are an overrated instrument. With a country like India, which is, it has a $3 trillion GDP, we are the 5th largest economy in the world. I think we should be able to deal with sanctions that are thrown at us now. A decade or 2 decades ago, it was different, but this is a new India. We are a confident India, and I don't think we will be intimidated by threats or coercion of this nature. The times that countries like Canada could preach to us from the high moral pulpit are gone. If anybody threatens us with sanctions, I think we are capable of imposing counter sanctions on our part. Both sides will feel the detrimental impact of sanctions, on their economies and on the lives of people. And I think it will be equally harmful to both. So this is not the way to go. I think if Canada decides to go that route, we will have a fitting response.
Do you expect India to take any further action? Because in the current scenario, we've acted in reciprocity to an escalation by Canada. Can India impose visa restrictions or take any other diplomatic measures to further downgrade ties?
Well, there are many instruments, diplomatic instruments at the disposal of a government that has to deal with situations involving another country. We can expel more diplomats, for example. We can break diplomatic relations. We can stop official delegations visiting each other's countries. We can stop issuing visas, as you say, to Canadian nationals. We can stop buying Canadian products. We buy a lot of Canadian products, including pulses, a number of commodities, etc. But the fact of the matter is that for us to take another step would be very calibrated, I'm sure, would depend on what Canada may or may not do. And I think, there are enough steps that have been taken, and we need to sit back and see what next steps are necessary. The Canadians certainly won't help if they, go on to looking at other measures. I think that will be, as I said, mutually detrimental and certainly will not help their case. And I don't think we are in a position to be preached to any longer. I think for the time being, both sides have taken certain steps, and those are diplomatic steps. And I think we will have to, wait and see what comes next.
We're getting to know from Indian government sources, Ambassador Shringla, that the Indian High Commissioner to Canada had been engaging with the Canadian government very intensively over the last 1 year. At the same time, the Canadian police referred to certain individuals but did not provide any specifics to India at the same time. The manner in which the Canadian government has acted in public and in private, what does this show?
No, so as I said, I mean, what we have been telling the Canadians all along is that, look, let's work together to address these issues. The issues involved really are not a lot of people, a certain number of people who are working on terrorism, working on organized crime. They're associated with antisocial elements. Let us work on dealing with these elements together. The Canadians have not responded to that proposal of ours. Instead, they've gone on to raising issues in the public domain, ignoring the mechanisms that are available between two governments to resolve issues of this nature. And as a result, I think we've lost an opportunity to take up what really might be the core issue, which is basically a very small group of people who are involved in activities that are detrimental to the interests of both countries. Right. And as I said, for political reasons, for whatever reasons best known to Mr. Trudeau, he has decided to take a different line altogether. And I think that is not in the interests of either the relationship or his own